Welcome to Lee Rose's Purposeful Love, teaching you how to love yourself with purpose. Today, I present Standing on Psalm 91, Our COVID Nightmare. 2020 has been a year. When 2019 ended, we all had high hopes for this year. This would be our year. Instead, a pandemic swept the world. A global civil rights movement resurfaced and exploded onto the scene. People lost jobs and their homes, but worst of all, people lost their lives. This story is about my family's ordeal with COVID-19. What was having COVID like?
Difficult.
Devastating.
Unimaginable.
Scary.
Traumatic.
Daunting. Suffocating.
Did you have COVID?
No, praise God, because I was pregnant.
Yes, I had COVID.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I had COVID. Actually, I'm the one who actually introduced it to my household and my sister's household.
What were your symptoms?
At first I thought they were just allergies, but then I started having more of an irritation in my chest. It was a little, I would say, I could still breathe, but it was a little, it was irritating every time. A little bit of a headache, extremely fatigued, and just totally not myself. Like I could tell something was wrong, and I could actually smell the sickness. It wasn't good, and it was weird at the same time because part of me, it's like it wasn't a sickness I was used to. I almost felt like I wasn't sick, but then very sick. It was confusing.
Nausea, diarrhea, headache, fever.
Losing that sense of smell, sense of taste. I had a lot of nasal congestion. It wasn't that bad. I can still breathe through my nose. I remember that. I didn't really have to blow my nose. My throat was a little irritated, and it just felt like strange allergies. But the major thing that affected me the most, I think, was the fact that I was tired and felt weak, and I couldn't stay up on my feet for very long. As long as I stayed in bed, I felt totally healthy. The moment I would get up and try and walk around or whatever, my body would give out in like 10 minutes to be like, oh, you thought you were healthy. You need to go lay down. And that was like 2 weeks of that. I had no medication, just homeopathic things like steam, tea, soup, just things that really help to clear out inflammation.
My symptoms were an excruciating headache that I had for several days, and then some very, very debilitating fatigue that I also had for several days. My symptoms. Interesting thing with this, I only had a fever. Literally, I had a fever for 2 days. I just figured it was some reaction to my kidneys. And I definitely obviously didn't want to go to the hospital like everybody else doesn't want to go to the hospital. While I was in there, I felt good. I walked off the wheelchair, got ready to get in the bed, put on my clothes the way they asked me to, went to the restroom on my own. I was fine. Once again, it was just a fever. They're going to give me Tylenol to help try to keep it down. This is probably around 3 hours into me first getting to the emergency room. I got up to go to the restroom. I was fine by the time I went to the bathroom. But when I went to go wash my hands, I noticed I was extremely weak. And with that weakness, I noticed my breathing was a little funny. So I just told the nurse, I guess I'm going to need help next time. I'm not going to be able to get to this bathroom. And from that point on, they had to put a potty near my bed. By the next time I needed to use the bathroom, I had felt fine the whole time laying in the bed. By the next time I needed the restroom, but when I sat up and threw my legs off the bed, I couldn't catch my breath. Something as simple as breathing. I couldn't figure out how to do it. And God bless those nurses, because they stood there with me for probably around 10-15 minutes, encouraging me to breathe in and to breathe out. In the meantime, they're watching my oxygen level to make sure I'm okay. And then I was finally able to get up and use the potty. And then it takes still time, and then finally get back in bed. And yeah, I'll let you know, diarrhea came with this also. And truthfully, those were pretty much all of my symptoms at that time. By that night, I had been put in a regular room. I wasn't in the ICU room for COVID. That night they walked in my room. They told me, oh, we're going to be moving you to ICU. I didn't feel any different laying still. As long as I laid still, I wasn't having problems breathing. But it was my oxygen that was telling them I was in distress. They skipped the regular, basic oxygen you see them put in it, and they put me right on to what's something they call a warm flow cannula to help me breathe better. And then they wheeled me to the ICU side of the floor. As time went by, I was in the hospital 28 days. During that time, besides the weakness that happened, I really also lost control of my legs. I had to walk with a walker if I could walk. They had to bring in physical therapy to help me. And I didn't know it at the time, but I'm noticing it more now. It has affected my memory some. I didn't understand why the doctors and nurses would come in the next day and ask, did I remember that they saw me the day before? And because I remembered them, but it's strange, it's other things I can't remember. It's sometimes little words of something I know all the time and I can't even verbalize what it is, and I'm calling it every other thing. Well, those were my symptoms. And yeah, the breathing thing continued.
This is what happened.
So I hadn't really been following the news. So I found out about COVID from a coworker who came into the office freaking out one day because we were getting closer to spring break. And she was like, yo, like a few of the families saying that they're going overseas. And I don't think that's a good idea. I think we need to let them know that they need to quarantine before they come back. And I remember me and my boss being like, okay, there might be some weight to this, but I guess we both were just in our own world because we had a lot going on. We had a huge gala fundraiser that was going to be going up on my birthday, which happened to be March 14th. Technically, the day before everything just completely shut down. And so we were so wrapped up in that I feel like it kind of snuck up on us. I had been sick with the flu in February, and I was out an entire week. And I just know that, when you're pregnant, you don't want to get sick with anything. So from there, a lot of the questions became, okay, can we safely run the school now that COVID's back? Because we were considered an essential business, but we still chose to close. So then it became a risk of being furloughed and things like that. And they fought to continue to get us paid. So that was pleasant. I got to be off a few months while pregnant. And I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty nice in the beginning. it was isolating because I didn't really get to see like my family though. The last time we saw each other was in March. My birthday was supposed to be like our last get together, but everything shut down and I needed to protect myself. I have a lot of family members who, are immune compromised themselves, so it was just kind of like we were all just in our own little pockets, and it was just me and my husband. He was working from home already, just stuck in the house with each other for months. And till we finally opened back up the school, I want to say that was June or May. I think it might have been June or May. So we were open for a little bit. And once I went back, I knew that there was a risk of me getting COVID, but I had to. So I definitely then wasn't going around family, which now looking back, I completely feel like I regret, because the last time I got to see my grandmother was me trying on like my maternity dress for my photos that I was about to take in June, and her getting to see me in it. That was the last time I got to see her, in person, alive. So to me, the hardest part of COVID was the part of not being able to be with your loved ones. So for me, being pregnant on top of it, it hurt. And it was very scary because I wasn't even allowed to go, I wasn't allowed to really go anywhere. People weren't even allowed in the office when I did go back to work. Like, they treated me like I was a leper because they were trying to protect me. But I'm also trying to protect my family. And it was just a lot of different things. And it just feels so minute. Like, I would have, if I knew what I knew now, I would still go and just be like, no, we're going to see each other. We're going to force this on each other and, wear masks and just be okay with that. But we were, at that point, I remember how COVID was. COVID was really scary because every other day they were saying something different about how it was transmitted, it was so intense and scary. We also were in the middle of a move. We were all going to be moving in with my mother and all that. And I think that also kind of, was another distraction, but it technically was, where COVID was definitely a very real thing, but we were so focused on work, preparing for the baby, moving into the new place, all that there's a whole pandemic going on all around you and people are dying. And I don't know if I still was taking it as serious as it needed to have been, in the ways of feeling still kind of untouchable. I don't know if that makes sense. So I just never in my wildest dreams would have thought that it would have touched my family. And I guess most people would feel that way. Oh no, it's not. No, everyone's going to be fine. Even though people are immune compromised. We all follow the procedures, but you don't want to ever think like that,
I remember I got a call from my mom that my father passed out at Publix. And, growing up with my dad, I've always seen him as a strong man. And to hear that he was knocked down, I can't even describe how that felt. But he went to the hospital, and when he went to the hospital, they gave him a COVID test and all that good stuff, and they sent him home. A couple of days after, he was told he had COVID. And, normally when I speak to my father, he's always, happy-go-lucky. What's going on, son? How you doing? How you been? And he sounded so bad. And I couldn't imagine that was him on the line. And it's just this cough. I'll never forget the cough. And him gasping for air every few words he would give me. And that threw me off. And my mom, she's a cancer survivor. And then I was told she had COVID. And when I was told that she had COVID, my heart sank, because it's people who are compromised, that's it. That's it for them. But by the grace of God, she did survive that. And then going on to my sister, my mom, of course on my wife's side, even my little nephew all had COVID. From my aunt, it's just, again, my word, it was unimaginable. I never think when you look on those TV shows in China and they're walking around with masks, that this is what you'll be experiencing. And to see all those strong, prominent people in my life weakened by this disease or pandemic, whatever they call it, is just something that I can't even describe.
What happened? So I remember it was a Friday in July. It was like towards the end of July. We're trying to get our paperwork signed so that we could finally move into this house. This was not my bedroom 5 months ago. And it was just taking forever. We were supposed to move in June, but it was into July. My sister's due date's ticking, and we're freaking out because, like, we did not want her giving birth in the place she was living at because their sewage was backing up. And so we're like, will you guys hurry up? And I'm like, in the name of Jesus, we're going to be in that place by such and such a date, and then such and such a date will come up. Nothing. And honestly, now looking back, my mom pointed this out, it was a blessing because we would have been all in the house together when we got COVID. And that meant that my sister would have been affected, my brother-in-law, and then my nephew who has asthma. So there's times where you got to look back at things where it's like, oh my gosh, that was so annoying. And then you realize, no, that actually probably saved our lives. But yeah, that was the first thing that happened. It was, we're trying to sign papers and whatnot. And so I remember my aunt tells us, oh, I'm going through rejection and I need someone to come take us to the doctor. And so me and my mom were like, and then my mom was like, you know what? I'm going to go because I have to still bathe grandma because she chose to be the one to bathe my grandmother. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, besides, I'm the one who's actually helping to pack the house. I don't want to lose a day of packing.
Took my sister to get one of her treatments. She got a kidney last October, and she's been having rejection episodes, and she had to go to get treatment. So I was asked to take her for her last treatment, and I did. I sat in the car. We made sure we wore our masks anytime we were out of the car. But in the car, of course, we didn't have our masks on. She went, had her treatment while I waited for her. Then I drove her home. And at that point, we just hung out and everything. So, of course, in the house, we're not wearing masks. I helped my mom to bathe and everything. We had a great time. We ate and everything and had wonderful conversations. I was excited and telling my mom all about our new home and how I made sure that there was a bathroom on the first floor that she could go to. No more having to go worrying about, oh, I can't come see you because you got to go upstairs and everything. And looking forward to baby, everything. And just saying, Mom, I can't wait to have you over. And, that evening I left and I went home, and a few days later, and
So Deirdre had just earlier that year gotten a kidney transplant. And then so she had to go to the hospital regularly for treatments. And the treatments take several hours, so sometimes they give her some food. And during one of those times, we figured that she had to take off her mask, and she probably contracted COVID at one of those times. And then, by the time she came home, all of us at the house were exposed to it. So it was me and Delzora. So that's how we all contracted it.
And we had to go to the hospital that morning. I still felt fine, just had a fever. Got to the ER, got out the car, waved goodbye to my husband, took me in, did the test, came back. You have COVID. I was not shocked, but that's when it really sunk in because I really didn't believe I was going to get it because I did everything I'm supposed to do. After that, they took me in an ambulance from the Tampa General Emergency in Brandon to Tampa General because of the kidney transplant. I try to go to Tampa General at all times since those are where my kidney doctors are. But this time I wasn't going to the kidney floor. They actually took me to COVID floor.
So I'm packing. She's taking care of them, goes to them. Everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. We do this all the time. It's routine. We've been doing it since she's been out the hospital. I go over there, take care of them, take Auntie to the hospital or whatever she has to do. And we take turns, all of us. We've been doing it for the last 2 years. And so I remember we get through that. I remember Monday I go over to my sister's house to help her start at least the preliminary packing. Sorry about what just happened. Sometimes words don't come out my mouth. But just start the initial packing because she wasn't getting packed because she's like out to hear her. It was just not getting packed, okay? So I'm going over there. I dropped my son off because I was like, oh, I need to get some stuff done. She's like, oh, leave him here. This will probably be the last time we see Steven for a while, so you might as well have them together. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So I leave my son there, and Tuesday morning, I'm like in my bed praying. I'm like, praying and meditating. I'm about to go out and go work out, and my mom comes into my room, and she's like, I was just on the phone with Auntie, and she just said that she has COVID. And just when she got her surgery done, and they're telling her that she's going to be on immunosuppressants and stuff because her body wants to reject the new kidney, they told her she couldn't even get the flu. Mind you, we didn't know about COVID when she had the surgery. But yeah, they're telling her she can't even get the flu because that would kill her. Like, no colds, no nothing. So we already had masks. We were already using hand sanitizer. Like, we were prepared for COVID before we knew COVID was going to be a thing. And so I just burst into tears. It was like my mom just told me my aunt died. Because I was like, that's literally what they told us. She was going to die from the flu. People are dying from this. I don't know people who died from the flu. So if she could die from the flu, she's definitely dying from this.
So I get a call from my sister, and she very, briefly and abruptly says, I'm at the hospital. I got COVID. And, it was like, I went swiftly through just disbelief and everything, and then total panic because if she had COVID, and I was with her just a few days ago, all I could think of is, oh my gosh, I was exposed. And that meant I brought it home to my daughter and my grandson. And then what had me even more crazy and scared at that point was the fact that my daughter and my grandson was over at my other daughter's house who was pregnant. And all I could do, I'm praying, I'm just pretty much a nervous wreck at that point, But, we're still trying to, it's still allergies, we're just still trying to deny it, but it wasn't. It wasn't, and my daughter comes home and the grandson and stuff. And believe me, it was a time for prayer and everything and stuff. And yeah, I had COVID. And sister was in the hospital. I had COVID. Scary part was, so did my mom and my brother-in-law. They were left at the house. My brother-in-law had to drop my sister off, and she had like a high fever and everything. And my sister, she never did get to say anything to my mom.
And I'm freaking out. And I remember I went outside that day and I ran in the rain because it was therapeutic. I didn't care that it was raining and pouring. I was like, just let the sky cry with me. And then it hit us. Oh yeah, you were with her. So now we're quarantined in the house and we have to move, and we're trying to figure out, okay, can we do these things? Maybe she got sick afterwards. Maybe because she ain't got much of an immune system, she just got sick. She didn't really have it. And then Wednesday, my mom's saying, I feel a little funny. And I'm like, lovely. I still felt fine. Thursday rolled around. House has now been told, we've got it. We're about to move in. We've got to sign papers. And we're like, well, we can't be in the signing because we've been exposed. And my sister, she was like, I don't feel anything right now. I can probably do it. So she ended up having to be the power of attorney for my mom that Monday. And so my sister goes to sign the paperwork for us while our symptoms are starting to pick up. And right before we had to sign the papers, that was a Monday. That Friday, my uncle goes to tell us that not only is he feeling sick, well, he's not telling us he's sick. He's like, I got symptoms. But my grandmother had a fever. And I'm just like, Grandma too? But see, I wasn't as scared for Grandma initially because I was like, okay, Grandma at least has an immune system. Yes, she's gone through cancer. She also has diabetes, and she is 81 years old, and she's been said she is ready to check out. But I'm like, she still has the power to fight. She is not weaker than my aunt. So hopefully. So I'm like, I'm going over there like, and then when I see her, she's still like, her fever was gone. She's in her chair watching TV. Me and her are kikiing. And I think what freaks me out more about that day was, besides my uncle, I was the second to last family member to see her alive. Because once she went in the hospital, none of us ever got to see her again. And that was like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So I'm... so there's a lot of worrying going on and everything, and I did get the confirmation. I went to my doctor. They actually had a drive-up lane in the parking lot of the place, and they took the test, and a couple days later they confirmed I had COVID. But at that point I already knew I had COVID because I knew that the way I was feeling and everything was not normal, and my chest, I could just feel it and everything. But thank God, unlike my sister who was in the hospital, we didn't get that sick that we had to go to the hospital. It was a touch and go though with my grandson. That was scary, it's like what was crazy though was my daughter and I. I have to say that the stuff we were doing before COVID hit us, I think the Lord was preparing us and enabling us to be strong. Because she had me drinking some chlorophyll water, and we were exercising and doing all of this kind of stuff. So I actually, in many ways, was in better shape than she was. Able to go up and down some stairs. We were in the middle of moving to my new house. We were packing up. So here we were, two women sick as all get out, packing and getting ready for a move.
And so all that's happening, we're dealing with the symptoms, feeling weak, trying to move. And I remember once moving date came and all the papers are signed, we have the house, we're all trying to move in really quick because we're supposed to be out by the 31st of July, and we're sick, and we don't even know if people have our apartment. So we're like really freaking out, like, oh my gosh, we have to get out of here. How are we going to get out of here with COVID? And I asked one of my friends, I was like, okay, we're not going to be in the house. We're going to air out the place and stuff. If you guys can wear masks and stuff. And my friend like just shows you, they're like, yeah, we'll do that. And she's like, yeah, I got it. And that's not what happened. I remember me and my mom worked ourselves so bad. And even my son, oh my gosh, we worked ourselves so hard. Because I remember all of us, our symptoms were minor. He was just complaining about headache. I was feeling a little headachy, but like I didn't even have to take medicine. It would just disappear. all on its own. Same thing with my mom, but we worked ourselves and we did not, I think I went to bed a half an hour before I was supposed to get up. Same thing with her. I can't remember what time I sent my son to bed, but I know he didn't sleep very much. It had to probably been like 2-3 hours of sleep and that was it. So that's the major thing. You cannot do too much with COVID. You need to still be moving, but you cannot do way too much. So we pushed our bodies way too hard. And I remember the move didn't happen at all because of the fact the movers freaked out. My friend didn't show up. And so now we're stuck here. And thank God no one had taken the apartment. So we had 2 more weeks to actually just like be on the mend. And now we're living amongst boxes. Like all my clothes are in boxes, everything, our dishes. So we had to unpack a little bit so that way we could slightly live there. We had to like have groceries, all types of food delivered because we couldn't even step outside. And it just felt so isolating. Like it was weird. I was like, I had the flu. And I remember, I laid up in my room all day. It was just simply because I didn't want to get up. No, but nobody was scared to be around me. But people are scared. If you guys saw those movers, it was so scary. But yeah, it was like 2 weeks of just boredom. I watched so much Netflix.
So, what happened was my mom got sick by Nene, and then you told me to stay away from me, but I didn't want to because I don't like to stay away from my mommy. So I just stuck with you, so then I got sick. That's all I can remember.
So the day that we were supposed to move, my son totally had me freaked out because, and he told me he doesn't even really remember that day. I remember I got him up and I put him in the car with air conditioning because I touched him. I was like, "Ooh, you're hot." But I didn't get a chance to check his temperature because that stuff was packed up. So I put him in the car and he's like, and I remember I tried to put his mask on and he's like, I can't breathe. So I had to take his mask off, and which he's never complained about. So he's screaming he can't breathe. I put him in the car. He goes to sleep with the air condition blowing. And the next thing I know, my mom's like, we're not moving. So I have to bring him inside. I go to check his temperature. It's like 103 point something, and it's high. So I have to give him medicine. I'm like trying to cool him down, put steam in his face. And he's just like sleep for most of that day. In and out of sleep. And the times he is waking up, he's begging me to take him to the hospital. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because I don't want to end up being separated from you. Like, I'm not saying that to him. Like, he doesn't know that. But I'm like, I'm going to get this down. And I took EMS. So I'm like thinking of all the ways that I can get his fever down. And I remember by probably like 2 a.m, because we were in and out of sleep. So our sleep schedules were messed up. I think it was 2 a.m. His fever had gotten to its highest. It was 103.9. And I was like, if it climbs any higher, it doesn't matter if we get separated or not. He's going to have to go into the hospital. So this is my last ditch effort to get this temperature down. I stuck his little butt in the bathtub, put up his tablet, gave him medicine, and he was screaming, "No!" And I'm like, "You're taking medicine." I gave him chlorophyll too in the medicine. And then I made him sleep with me so I could make sure I was giving him his medicine at the times that he needed. And by morning, his temperature was gone, and he never complained of another symptom after that. But that was my scariest moment with it. Scariest, because I didn't know if I was going to have to separate myself from my child and then have to leave him in a hospital by himself, because I know they weren't going to let me in because I have COVID also. So yeah, 2020 sucks. That's all I can say. But yeah, it just sounds like a weird dream when I explain it. It just sounds like something that it was an outer body experience. Yeah, I had some really interesting moments. We had some key moments, but it was really just like waking up and like, oh my gosh, I'm still in this hell. Like, this is what it felt like, hell.
What happened? Only thing I'll tell you for sure is God took care of me during this time. Because literally, I had no idea that I was in critical condition. Because, on TV they kept showing people in beds being incubated. I wasn't being incubated. I may have had the cannula with the oxygen flow going on me, but I wasn't incubated. I was sitting in my bed. I was eating every meal they brought to me. I was watching TV. I was staying up till 11 o'clock every night, waking up just before they came in. As long as I laid in bed, physically, I didn't notice any difference. It's when I went to actually get up and get out of the bed that it just attacked me so horribly. Also during this time, they talk about prone sleeping. They want you flat on your back. One doctor even told my nurses, I want her on my stomach for 18 hours. Well, that wasn't going to happen because I was not comatose. I gave them my nighttime sleep and I would take a nap in the daytime. And I love sleeping on my stomach anyway, so it wasn't that much of a burden. And I would just pass out and breathe and slobber and do all the wonderful things and have my good little jokes with the nurses. Once again, never realizing I was in critical condition this entire time. I know when I finally, there were so many stages. They moved me probably around 5-6 times to different rooms, to different levels. At one time, I actually went to the actual ICU floor where they have all the big, gigantic windows and everything. And in that room, that could have been scary, but I was still so mobile. But I did see them bring other people in, where you have this whole team of 10 people around the bed holding up machines and stuff, wheeling them in to get them to their cubicle. So I can only say thank God once again. That wasn't me. I was conscious. It may have taken a lot of energy and work to get out of the bed, but at least I could still get up and get out the bed to take care of our bodily issues. I was in the hospital for 28 days. ICU for 21 of those days. At the last week, they actually moved me to the kidney transplant floor, where then I was considered not contagious, but COVID had done a job on my lungs. While I was in the hospital, they did 2 x-rays. They brought the machines to me, flipped me around, had to take it. And not that I'm a doctor and can tell what I'm looking at, but my lungs were cloudy all the way through. I wasn't coughing. People talk about coughs. Like I said, I didn't have all these symptoms. It was literally my oxygen and the breathing. I became almost what I call an old woman. I'm only 55. And literally, I have to ring the bell. Nurse comes. I got to go to the bathroom. I sit up on the edge of the bed. We're watching my oxygen level just drop. I was a steady, probably at 96 while I laid in bed. And then as I sat up, I was dropping below 90 and literally struggling to breathe. So between me trying to breathe straight and trying to get my oxygen up and having to go to the bathroom, extremely bad, but there's nothing I could do. I had to sit there and wait it out until I could actually get up and my oxygen level leveled out. I laughed at it after a while because, like I said, I'm on the cannula. So I have a cord hooked into the wall, and it's just long enough in every room for me to get to the toilet. Sometimes even sitting on the toilet, my head had to hang out a little bit because my cord wasn't long enough. You got to find some humor in some things. Then you're sitting there trying to do your business, hoping to do your business. And once again, because I had to walk those few steps with a walker, and it's not many steps, but you got to use a walker to get there. it made my level drop. And I'm sitting on the toilet trying to control my breathing and get my oxygen back down before I can even get up again and make that long journey back. Which, once again, like I said, was short. It was just a couple of steps. And that was my process throughout the day, every day. Once they finally didn't have to have me on a potty. Next, the hospital was awesome. They had PT, physical therapy come in and occupational therapy come in and work with me. Once again, like I said, if I was critical, why are they doing all this to me? Shouldn't I be laying still? But the key was they had to keep me moving. So I kept moving. They would come in, they would get me up. And the sad part is, like I said, I'm 55 years old. The biggest thing would be just having me kick my legs or raise my arms or breathe. They do that with me for 10, 15 minutes and then they'd leave me. As time progressed, they'd come back. Now it's like, we're ready to get you up out of that bed and walking. Put the walker at me. Literally. I felt like I didn't know how to walk anymore. I would walk a couple of steps and have to stop. Because not only is my legs weak and they can't hold me, my breathing is going up and down. And then I have to walk back and sit down and breathe. This continued until baby steps, like when you watch a little baby start walking and then finally that one time when they stand up and can run. Well, my biggest thing was the one time I could stand up with the walker and walk from one end of my room to the window and didn't have to stop and wasn't breathing hard and could look out the window at the beautiful bay. And then make it back to my chair or the bed. This went on for a while. By this time I was ready to go home. I wanted to go home, but every day the doctors would come in. Not yet. We got to get your oxygen level up. So this was just an ongoing. When they finally let me go, 28 days later, when they finally let me go, I didn't walk out the hospital, obviously. I was wheeled out, as is common. But what also went with me was a walker and an oxygen machine. Set up home health care to come see me. I had a nurse, I had PT therapists coming to work with me. It was interesting because after being in the hospital for 28 days, they tested me halfway through that for COVID. I still had it, technically in my system. But what the CDC would put out for people who are immunocompromised is that after 21 days of having COVID and then not having any sign of it, all the symptoms or anything, you are no longer contagious. So, okay, and they told us we didn't have to be tested again. That should be good enough. So I went home with that, thinking, okay, now I got to make all my doctor's appointments to go see certain doctors who won't be doing tele visits with me. And it took, after getting out the hospital, I was actually home. Oh, I almost forgot. I was home a week before my white blood cell count dropped pretty much to 0. I went and got a shot to bring it back up. And by Monday, I had a fever. And back to the hospital I get to go. Once again, of course, they're going to test me for COVID. It's going to come out positive. And this time, I didn't have to be put in the COVID ward because of all the protocols that they said. I stayed in the transplant unit for 5 days with them testing me to figure out what was wrong with me. And in the end, only thing that the doctors, and when I talk about doctors, we're talking about the internal doctors, the infectious disease doctors, my kidney doctors, my diabetic doctors, the endocrinologist. I had more doctors than I can even remember to list everybody. Oh, my pulmonist, my pulmonary doctor. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. Why did I get a fever? And in the end, finally, they could only guess was that I had a reaction to the shot I got from the white blood count. And they all figured also that it probably had to do with COVID. COVID made my system a lot more, I guess, sensitive to any shots or changes. And I got to go home again and continue with my nurse coming in to visit me and my PT therapy. It took 2 months, literally 2 months, before I could get off the oxygen. And most doctors I talked to, they were shocked that I was even still on it after a week from coming home. They had to get me down to at least hitting 98 liters. I mean, not 98 liters, 98 on the finger monitor thing, the odometer. And I was finally able to walk around the house without oxygen, though I would wear it when I would go out to the doctor. Probably within a month of getting out the hospital, my legs became strong enough that I began using the walls around the house to walk with. And eventually I began noticing I wasn't even touching the walls anymore. So within a month I was free of the walker, but not free of the walker outside of my house. Still a little nervous because my legs would still get weak if I had to go to an appointment or something. And there was a lot of walking that I had to do. So technically for 2 months, I still had to use a walker and the oxygen. And mixed in here were doctor's appointments where some doctors told me I couldn't come see them because I did not have a negative result. And because their office had their own different rules, they didn't care what CDC recommended. So you throw that on top of everything, just the aggravation of trying to keep myself healthy in other areas. COVID's not something to play with. And, and they couldn't even tell me that I won't catch it again. So yes, you see me out on the street, I'll still be wearing my mask. I will still be trying to stay away from you. No, I don't eat in restaurants. Oh, I do a lot of takeout and eating at home. But I won't eat in restaurants because my mask, as long as I'm out in public, is not coming off. I'm even nervous just to walk outside my door because they warned me. Somebody, COVID, could pass your door, cough, or just passing my door and breathe. And I open my door and walk out into it without my mask on. I could be contaminated. We don't know. So, I'm not risking that. Been through enough. So I wear my mask. I guess that's it on my life with it all. It's a lot. And my body's still recovering now because I can't do what I used to do still. But I'm better. I'm getting better every day.
Who was Delzora Davis?
Warmth.
Mom fantastic.
Matriarchal.
Tough cookie.
She was magic.
Presence.
Tough.
Delzora Davis was born in New Orleans, Louisiana on February 17th, 1939 to Alan Ingram and Valtina Miller Ingram of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She was the older sister to Alan Jr. and Burks Elroy. The family moved to Brooklyn, New York in 1944. She graduated from Franklin K. Lane High School in June 1957. She married in 1961 and had 2 beautiful daughters, Valtina and Diedre Johnson. She later married Adolph Davis, October 1970, and they were married for 31 years. Delzora worked in various clerical capacities for private industry, served 26 years with military and civilian federal government agencies. She retired from the U.S. Small Business Administration in 1994. Delzora accepted Jesus Christ in 1974, and then she joined Highland Church in Queens, New York in 1980. She served in various ministries, loved performing in the Highland Drama Team, and then later she joined the Kingdom Place Ministries in Anniston, Alabama in 2016.
How did my mom affect my life? There's no one thing about it. The only thing I'm going to say is, well, it's never only one thing I'm going to say, but she is my mother. Who I am is because of her. She wasn't perfect, but she loved us to pieces. She cared about us. She cared about people around us. She taught us wrong from right. We could laugh about stuff that was good and bad. You could tell her anything. I hear other people can't do that with their moms. It's one of the most awesome things there is. You have friends who, frankly, called my mom mom, called my mom grandma, because she is who she was. She loved to listen to people. She wasn't always necessarily giving you advice, but she loved to listen to what you had to say. And then she might say something to you that will change your life, make you go think about it. Who is Delzora to me? It's real simple. She's mom. She was mom. And I'll put it this way. Turn the word mom upside down. And what do you get? Wow. That's Delzora.
Who was my mom to me? Delzora Davis was my mom. She's the lady who gave birth to me, who nurtured me, raised me, loved me. She actually was my very first best friend. Love that woman. Never will stop. As a matter of fact, I'm wearing her top right now. And it still has her white diamonds. Oh my God. I have dreaded the day that she would no longer be here. And it wasn't supposed to be this year. It really wasn't. I feel as though somebody stole it from me. I feel as though politics stole her from me, because this was a time that we should have come together as a nation. We should have done everything possible to make sure that every last one of us was safe. What is so hard about wearing a mask? What's so hard about staying still for just a little while? What is so hard? And I feel like, because we're here in Florida, it didn't even have to get that hard here, but people wouldn't stay away. And here my mom didn't even go out except to go to the doctor. She had no business getting COVID. No business getting COVID. My sister, we've been wearing masks around my sister since she got the kidney. I spent Christmas with a mask on because I had a slight cold. So for us to wind up like this, I'm angry. I feel as though my mom was stolen from me. She was so sweet. And she was hard as diamonds when she had to be. But the warmth and everything, she was where we all gravitated towards her. And that is something we've lost. Something we're learning to live with right now. Right now, I have her ashes in the home she never got to visit. And it just should not have happened. She had more time.
Delzora Ingram Davis, and yes, I had to say her whole name. She was my grandmother. I am her firstborn grandchild of blood. I do have older step cousins, but I was the first one that like she was blood related to. So I'm her oldest when it comes to that. I am the oldest of her oldest. So, and I was also her rebellious one. So yeah, I was the one who just drove her insane, but we had a very close bond. I loved my grandmother. She took care of me. Like there wasn't much time. Like if we ever had stretches of time where we didn't see her, which would probably be like a month at most, it would be she was on vacation while I was growing up. The only time where it finally became like we didn't see her for almost a year was when she moved to Alabama when I was like 23 years old, like 23, 24. That's when she moved. But which means I had her like every day up until I was like 23 years old, and that's a really long time. She raised me. My grandmother and grandfather bought a house when my mom was pregnant with me, kind of like how my mom just did with my sister. So that way, when I was born, I'd be in the house with them, and so that my grandmother could help her. And so I saw my grandparents every day until we moved out when I was 8. And then I still saw them every day because they babysat us when my parents were at work. Like every day after school, that's where I was going. I saw them on the weekends. All my friends were in her neighborhood. Like I had no friends where we lived. It was all the people who lived around her. And she always became everybody's grandmother. And so like, I knew that whoever I was bringing around her was going to just fall in love with her because like, it was, if you did, like, I say this about my mom, but it's the same thing for my grandmother. If you didn't like her, there was something wrong with you. Like, what was wrong with her? Like, she was the most sweetest, caring person, and now you couldn't take advantage of her. That was the biggest thing. So we always called her tough. That's why we called her Cookie, Tough Cookie. She looked like a chocolate chip cookie on top of it, but oh, that lady, you could not try and pull a wool over her eyes, nothing like that, because she was not going to get got. Like, she was a New Yorker to the bone, like from Brooklyn. You could not get her, but she was still sweet. And I think that's so rare to have someone who's so real and so out there and who's willing to tell you the truth, but she did it with so much sugar and sweetness and warmth that, yeah, she might have kind of insulted you, but you didn't even realize it. But yeah, if I couldn't get my mom on the phone, I got her on the phone. And if I knew I couldn't get my mom on the phone, I got her on the phone. She was the first person I told that I was pregnant when it came to having to tell the adults who raised me. Yeah, and she was always she was that grandmother who like gave you the money like a little drug deal, like, hey baby, like she'd pass you some money. But there's such a, I don't know, there's something so heavy about the fact knowing that I was the last one to see her alive besides my uncle.
So, my grandma was tough as nails, okay? And don't you ever forget it. Like, Delzora was the bomb.com. Anyone I ever introduced to her, they knew what time it was. Like, she was just that person, you know? As she got older and her health started failing, it depressed her and it gave her anxiety. And so she definitely calmed down the older she got. But my husband himself will even say, because he got to know her on her, you know, her final years, but he even said, I can still see her glimpses of her because, you know, she was a trip. She really was. But the grandma, when I was a kid, you know, and she was just she was magic. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, she was just, she was very strong. Very strong. And she lived with me and my sister. She basically helped raise me and my sister. We lived with her for most of our childhood. She took me to school. She was like my buddy. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, so they would tease me because I'm so much like my grandma, the good and the bad. Like, you know, me and her would go there and have a cynical contest, like who can be a little more cynical. You know what I mean? Like, or who, you know, it's just, And that was our thing, like, you know, so I see so much of myself that was, you know, that I got from her. And it was also like becoming an adult and like getting married and now going through these parts of my life, like she's like that voice, you know. I don't know if other people have it, the adulting voice, you know, the one that's telling you, oh no, you need to handle what you need to handle, you need to, you know. And that's how I got through my labor, was thinking about, okay, what would my grandma do, you know, what would grandma do? Okay, grandma would be, or remembering everything that my grandmother would say, you know, keep this organized, do this, do that. No, well, you're gonna do it or no one else is gonna do it, you know, like you gotta take care of things, you know. And so that's what I got from her. And I love that woman. I love that woman to death. That is one of my favorite people that I've ever met, like, honestly. So
I don't really have full memories, but I know that she loved me and I loved her.
So it was like Monday or Tuesday of that week, I want to say. Everything's kind of blurry now, but I do know it was a few days before I actually gave birth. And out of nowhere, well, what felt like out of nowhere, my mom called me and was like, grandma's not going to make it. She's telling me she's not going to make it. And I'm like, no, like, grandma's going to make it. Grandma's been trying to kill herself for years, okay? And not literally kill herself, but she's been like, oh, if the Lord takes me, she's been very, so I'm like, no, like in denial, like, no, this is not happening. And I'm already stressed out about the move, about my pending labor that's coming. Like, everything was too much. And I was mean to my mommy, and I was like, no, this is not a thing. Stop feeding into it, you know. Speak positive to her, you know. She's gonna be fine.
Sorry, I needed a moment. Because I remember, I believe it was a Sunday. Like, everybody, the whole timeline is so, I think I probably have the best remembrance of dates and stuff, but I believe it was a Sunday or something like that. Yeah, it was a Sunday. And my mom yells to me, Cookie's on the phone. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Because they've been telling us all, it's been back and forth information of, she's going to be fine. No, we don't know. She's been on oxygen. Like, people weren't getting full details from each other. Like, I felt like some of it was slightly secretive. And I get it. We're all sick. We all don't need to be stressed out. My sister's trying to have a baby. Like, all of us are in precarious situations, and we're all trying to take care of each other, and none of us can actually really do it. And so I come in. My mom's like, oh, she's on a Zoom call, and I take the phone, and the first thing out of my grandmother's mouth is, baby, I'm gonna die. My son's standing next to me, and I'm just like, whoa. Okay, Grandma. And I remember that was the way I just said that was exactly how I said it. And I was just like, I love you and stuff like that. And I had Julius say he loved her. And
so I didn't speak to her that night. And Mom was like, no, you need to Zoom your grandmama, because, and this is how, we're not allowed to go up there. This is how people are having to communicate with their loved ones with COVID. Like, she's like, speak to her on Zoom. So I'm just thinking I'm calling her just to encourage my grandma. They put her on the video, and she has the machine like in her mouth, but I could still understand what she was saying. And the nurse was so freaking grim. I remember that, and just thinking like, oh my God, this is a terrible person. Like, oh my God, why is she the one caring for my grandmother? Like, this can't be right. And almost feeling like there was a conspiracy. Like, no, they're going to kill my grandmother. Like, they're going to kill her in there, because why are they just telling her, oh, yeah. Like, she casually was just like, yep, it might be overnight. What? How did we go from, no, they're getting better, they're fine, to, no, it might be tonight. your grandmother might die tonight. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And then you sounding all casual, like you're talking to me about my grandmother, my second mother. Like, no, bitch.
I passed the phone back to my mom because I couldn't even like look at her, because seeing all that stuff, like they knew that trying to get me to go visit people in the hospital after all the stuff that I witnessed with my grandfather and the other matriarchs and patriarchs of our family, I don't like being in hospitals. I don't like being in hospitals. I don't like seeing people in the hospital. Like, I just don't like seeing my loved one sick. Now, if you are sick and I love you, I'm probably the most reliable person at this point. Not saying anything's wrong with the rest of them, but I'm the one who knows how to stay calm until afterwards, and it's time to freak out. And so now I'm upset.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm something, but that's how I felt. Like, I was livid. And I'm talking to my grandma, and I guess she was a little bit like disoriented. She's like, where's the baby? Like, she's looking for the baby. And I'm like, Grandma, I have not had the baby, you know? And I'm like, shocked. I'm like, Grandma, I didn't have the baby yet. I get induced on the 6th, you know? And she's like, okay, the baby. And so I start walking around the room, showing her how I set up the baby stuff, and like showing her clothes, and like, you know, like, Grandma, you got to stick around, you know, you got to see her. And you're going to come out. And I remember telling her, you're going to come out the hospital. You're going to hold her with your own arms, okay? Do not give up on us. Like, and I love you so much. And she's just saying, okay, I'm going to try to see the baby. Like, it was just about the baby. That's all she kept thinking about was the baby, you know? So,
a few days go by, and my mom's like, Grandma's on the phone again, and they're telling us, encourage her, because she's most likely not going to make it. And I remember I didn't get my son this time because I didn't want her to accidentally say something again, and I wasn't prepared. And so I got on there, and she could barely speak, but she was trying to tell us that she loved us and that she was sorry. And we were like, it's okay, we love you too. It's okay, Grandma, I love you. And then they told us that the next morning that they don't think she was going to make it to the morning because she was having hypoxia, which, if you don't know what that is, it means that your organs are not getting enough oxygen.
Pretty much told them she didn't want them waking her up with all the crazy stuff at the hospital where, you know, they were trying to give her oxygen and she was no and everything. We got to, like I said, speak with her through video once, and she had already said goodbye then, and we were like, no, Mom, you can fight this. But the last phone call, it was just before she died, and she could barely speak, and all I could do was tell her how much I love her, how much I loved her, and was telling her the baby was on its way and trying to give her a reason to just hold on. But the nurse told me they didn't expect, you know, for her to make it through the night because her oxygen, they were fighting to keep it up. And they were trying to see if they could get her to hospice, if they get it stable. And the next day, I didn't get a call, so I was like, oh, okay. And then they called me to say they had stabilized her and they were taking her to hospice.
Me, my sister, and my cousin, we all said this because this is where the tough cookie part comes in. It didn't matter how out of it she was. It didn't matter how old. None of it mattered. The piece of her that made her Delzora was still there. And all she knew was that she didn't want to die in that hospital, because that's what I honestly believe. She knew she wanted to go. She was tired. She didn't want, because she was telling them to take the stuff off me, get it off me. She was fighting them on all the preventative stuff to help cure her, because it was irritating. She was like, I don't want any of this.
Well, I have not been able to touch my mom, to really hold my mom, because I'm in my house, in my apartment that I was supposed to have moved out of 2 weeks before, almost, and I'm still stuck there in quarantine. And that's when I get the phone call. They moved her to hospice because she stabilized. I think she just wanted to escape the hospital and be able to go out on her own terms. But the nurse called, and I could tell she seemed like she was just about as devastated, because she said, I went to check on her because, you know, she just looked like she had gone to sleep, and she wasn't there. And that's how I found out that my mom was gone.
And so she went there, and I don't even know if she was there an hour. And honestly, they don't even fully know when exactly she died because they thought she was sleeping. And she was gone.
So when I found out that she had passed, I was at home recovering from COVID. I was by myself except for my two dogs. Deirdre was at the hospital, and of course, Mom was at hospice. And I had been getting calls from her caretakers, her healthcare providers. So I was kind of better prepared than the rest of the family to get the news that she wasn't doing so well and that she had eventually passed. But I think it's what she wanted, because she didn't want any extensive care to be expended on her, or and then because she had survived cancer recently, and she didn't want to go through that again. So she probably was ready to go on her own terms.
And I was in the room with my mom talking when she got the phone call, and I had to hear this nurse on the speaker tell us. And then once she was done, and I remember when I was hearing it, I crumbled to the floor, just crying. And I don't even know how I'm getting through this, not fully boo-hooing. I then went to my son, told him. I could tell it took him a minute because he didn't react automatically. He was fine for a second. And then I think probably like a half an hour in, after I've called a couple people, told people, that's when he broke down. I remember that. And I had to comfort him for a little bit. And
so after my mom opened the door, I thought something happened to Nanny, but then when she told me, but I didn't know what to say. I was just scared.
And I was in isolation with my daughter and my grandson. Anybody else I had to call on the phone, including my sister. Nobody should have to be saying goodbye to one another over electronics.
Where was I when I heard my mother pass? I was down in what I called the monkey room. That was the ICU unit that had all the walls of glass, where everybody could see me do whatever I needed to do. And yes, that would have included me on the potty, but thank God they were so nice to me. They brought little shade things up to cover my glass up, because unlike some other patients who couldn't get out of bed, weren't moving on their own, I was able to move. I was allowed to move. Those were my orders. Even though when I first got there, they tried to keep me in bed. But my PT people came and rescued me. They said, oh no, she has to get up. And then speaking of that, that's when my PT people did come. The people in ICU wouldn't let me out of my bed, drove me crazy. And then my PT people showed up, my favorite two. I like the other ones too, but these are my original ones. They got me out of bed. They had me walk from one side of my bed to the other. We did a couple of other things, and then they helped me get comfortably back in my bed. Then they walked out the room, and then my phone rang. And I saw my sister's name. You sort of know something's not going to be what you want to hear. I had already known that they were transferring my mom to hospice because she refused to be incubated while she was in the hospital. And, technically, if you don't want their life-saving treatments, it's time to, leave. So they took her to hospice. And when I answered the phone, my sister said simply, she's gone. She's passed. We didn't stay on the phone long. We got off quick. And now I'm in my monkey room all by myself. Trying not to lose it. Because I know I'm hooked up to all these machines. I can just see people in ICU come running. What's wrong? I didn't want to boo-hoo real loud. So I sort of held it in. And I cried. And then on the other hand, I told my mom, it's okay. You're not in pain anymore. You get to see God. And you get to see Pops again.
So, on the 6th, like, I already woke up that morning just feeling kind of just scared, you know? So, I remember, like, telling, like, my husband, like, I feel really, like, you know, just, I was scared about the labor, just, like, grandma, like, I'm like, oh God, like, this is too much, you know? I remember I just was, like, reading scriptures and just, like, trying to calm myself and meditate and pray the whole day. And I remember him saying, like, you know, let me call my mom. So we called my mom-in-law, and she prayed for us because we were getting ready to go to the hospital. And while she was praying, it was just like, you know, one of those prayers where, like, oh, like, God is talking through her. She started praying for my grandmother too, like, you know, to give her, like, you know, healing and rest and all that. And it covered everything, and about me being strong, you know, and that you can do this. And after we got off the phone with her, like, I hear thunder, you know, and I'm like, oh great, now it's raining too, like, everything, like, I'm like, this is ominous, like, oh God, you know. And it was like the loudest thunder ever. And I'm like, okay babe, it's time, you know, it's time, let's go get something to eat before we go into the hospital, because I'm about to not be able to eat come midnight. And so I'm in the bathroom getting dressed, and my mom calls. And at this point, every time the phone has rung, it has felt like it's been with bad news. So, oh, and I was also on the phone with one of my coworkers at the time too, and she was just checking on me. And while I'm on the phone with her, like, I hear Steve like, what are you talking about? And I can hear my mom. She's just like, is Rachel nearby? Grandma didn't make it. And I was like, still in a place of denial. Not in denial, but in denial. And it was like, no. And in my mind, I almost wanted to be like, Steve, let's get in the car. Like, we gotta drive to wherever she's at. Like, so I can tell her to come back. Like, so, I just...
So, I stayed in the room quietly, cried for a while, wiped my eyes, and then my nurse came back in the room, and you're trying to figure out, what do I say? What do I do? Because I didn't want, things weren't the same, and they needed to know. So, I let my nurse know. Then my mom passed. And God bless these people. They're so precious and so compassionate. She asked me if I needed anything. Did I need the chaplain? And I was fine by that time. And, you know, at least I'm fine as fine could be. And she left, and she didn't let the rest of the floor know. And then,
like, that moment just, and I just remember, I didn't even cry. I was just mad. And I felt like, not betrayed, but like, I felt like, Why would she do that? like straight up. Why grandma do that? Like that's how I felt. Like, why did she leave me? Like, she was supposed to see her. And I'm walking back and forth in the house like, we ain't got no furniture in here either, you know. We just had our bedroom stuff because we had to give away all of our other stuff, like our living room set, everything. So I'm just walking back and forth, and my husband's the one crying, and I'm just like, no, like this isn't happening. Like, let's go. Like we're going, and we went and we got like, no, there was something else we had. I think we had to give the keys back or something, or we were picking up our deposit from the old place we were renting. Yeah, that's what it was. We were picking up the deposit, like the money. So I can't stay in this house. So let's go and actually go get that, because the old landlord had just hit us up. And I'm like, let's go and get that so we at least have that while we're in the hospital. And we're driving and we're just like in a complete state of shock. And I remember we got to the plaza where it was to like drop whatever we had to drop off and pick up whatever we had to pick up. And he had to pull the car over, and I mean, I just started sobbing. And there was still this continuous thunder that was happening in the background. Like, it was so like...
I got on the phone with my sister, and we just cried on the phone together because I couldn't cry with her. We couldn't pick up her stuff. My friend had to go do it. We're just trapped in a house, the three of us, for 2 weeks. We can't go hug my aunt, who we know is by herself. We can't go hug my uncle, who was the last one to see her. He's stuck in the house by himself. No one can come and comfort us. We have our phones and our phones alone, and all I remember is that was like, this is not how it was supposed to be.
My pulmonologist, who always used to tell, she'd stop by my window normally and see me trying to breathe. And she would literally stand in the window and then just go like, and I would see her, I'd smile, and I would mimic what she's telling me to do. Well, this time when she came by my window, she didn't do that. Instead, she put her fingers together in the shape of a heart, letting me know that she cared so much for me. Because you know, when you're in COVID isolation, no one can come in to see you except for your particular nurse, the side tech, and the doctors. They can't just come in because they got to put on the PPE to come in and be with you. But that touched me so much that she stopped by just to tell me how much she cared.
But that's when I finally was just like, this is okay. My grandma's gone. Like, and I had to tell myself, like, grandma's at peace. Your grandma was tough as nails. She had to do a lot of heartbreaking stuff in her life. I was such a grandma's baby, and through the years, I saw her constantly with a heart, like a broken heart, having to continue going. You know, what else are you gonna do? You're not gonna just lay down and no. So I'm like, this is the reality of the situation. My grandma is not gonna get to see my baby. Well, she will. She's in heaven. She gets to see her there. But I gotta get this baby out, and I have to be strong through this. So at this point, it felt like a wall. I had to literally put up a wall.
Now was the time with me in the hospital. I had to call my sons and let them know that their grandmother had passed. And I did it one by one. And I remember even texting my youngest son's girlfriend after I couldn't reach him on the phone. I figured he was at work. And I just told her, please have Emmanuel call me as soon as possible. She texts back, what's wrong? And then I felt bad because I never really answered her. Because I was able to reach him on the phone. But through all that, once again, I'm still in the room by myself because the nurses only come in to do what they need to do and they leave.
And we could not be with the woman who has always been there for us. This is 2020. May we never see another year as devastating as this.
It was hard. I called my husband. You knew, because he's on the hospice line for them to call. But there's nothing we didn't expect. Because at one time, literally, I was laying prone in bed. My phone rang. And it was one of Mom's nurses, or the hospice nurse, I think, was at the hospital with her. And Mom had wanted her to call me. And both of us, my mom's in one hospital, in Brandon Hospital, I'm in Tampa General. And we got to speak for the last time. Wasn't really a clear conversation because she couldn't speak that much. And I just needed to know that she could hear me. And I could hear the nurse repeating what I would say because, Mom needed hearing aids. She had hearing aids, but she never used them because they were annoying. And I remember at that time, I just kept telling her, it's okay, Mom. I know you're tired. If you need to go, it's okay. We love you. I love you. I love you. And that's really all I could say to her.
When my grandfather died, we all got to sit in a hospital room around him and just be like, we love you. My grandmother got to hold his hand and tell him it was okay for him to go when he took his last breath. And there's a part of me that I can tell is still angry that we didn't get that chance to do it. And I hope that one day I won't be angry. But I know for me, there was a lot of things I needed to do to make it stop. Hopefully one day the anger will go.
I know her heart was with the entire family. Worried about her children. All of her children. To know how she took, she worried about our family a lot. Even things she didn't need to worry about. So I know during this whole time, she was worried about me because, kidney transplant, immunocompromised. We weren't walking out the hospital too many times. So I know she was worried about that. She was worried about my husband home who was sick. We tried to take care of her for a while until he couldn't. We know she was worried about my sister and my niece and grandson and her great-grandson who were also home fighting COVID. But praise God, none of them had to go to the hospital. And then she was nervous about my other niece and her husband because my other niece was due to have her baby any day. But for a change, we all were worried. It wasn't just her. Because that was my thought all the time about my entire family. And them being safe.
I remember when we were getting ready and, packing our bags for her to give birth to our daughter. We had got the call about grandma and which was sad. And we went into the hospital and we were trapped. What I mean is you couldn't leave. You couldn't go nowhere. Once you were in that hospital, you had to stay in that hospital.
So I felt just numb. I still to this day feel numb sometimes, just kind of the emotion stuff has been okay, trying to be able to feel free to feel emotional again. I went in that hospital and did what I had to do and pushed my baby out. And it was not an easy labor and I almost bled out. My nurses and them, and this is another thing that hurt. was my sister was supposed to be in the delivery room with me. And me and my husband both could get, we're both high, like we can both get very emotional, and we needed, I feel, that one other person who is not completely in it, but who can be, helping both of us, because he's going through it too. You know what I mean? He's scared. His wife is on the table, all that. Like, we needed that extra person.
You got your temperature checks, and you had to wear a mask everywhere throughout the whole ordeal. That threw me off, because, something that's supposed to be a joyous occasion, as life being brought into the world, you feel combined in a bubble because of that.
And so the hospital, it was literally, if he left, he was not allowed to come back. So me and him, we had to pack all these snacks and stay in the room. And it was so lonely, and to be honest, it needed to be lonely while I was going through the labor part, because, oh God, but we needed another set of eyes. There was things that happened, even just with the staff, that I felt like just unprotected. Like, I just felt but my husband, he stepped up to the plate with that. When I mean stepped up to the plate, he had those people at that hospital shook. Like, no, like, and I remember my sister and my aunt and them saying to him, like, listen, because you won't be having anyone else in here, you're gonna have to advocate for your wife. It was just ridiculousness. I probably could do a whole nother video on just my labor story alone, where I felt like I wasn't being listened to, where or people just weren't respecting my wishes on things, and some of the stuff was very dangerous, and me and my daughter could have died. And I'm just so grateful. She had to stay 2 days in the NICU as well. So I'm just so grateful that she's healthy and she's thriving and she's beautiful and she's healthy, because what happened could have killed us.
Our daughter was born safely. They had complications with my wife, hemorrhage, almost bled out, and she didn't complain not one time. It was almost if grandma was there, and she knew that. Again, her presence was there, and she felt that.
We're in the hospital. Any woman who's given birth, you already know that feeling the next day. It is, oh Lord, so we're moved to the other side. My baby, her heart, like her breathing had kind of shallowed, like it dipped, like her oxygen, and they had to rush her to the NICU. So then I got discharged. We had stayed an extra day to begin with because of me, because I had lost so much blood. But then we had to, thank God we did stay that extra day, because it was a person who had came in to do tests on her, the stuff that they send to the state, and she's the one who noticed that my daughter's breathing was kept her heart rate kept dipping and all that. And so that's how they took her to NICU. Everything ended up being fine. She ended up being okay. I'm still hazy on that, not sure why. But we had to get a hotel and stay in town, because we were living too far from the hospital at this point, because we had just moved. And all the while I'm doing it, I'm literally blocking out in my mind, my grandma's not here, getting up, breast pumping, getting this going, I'm tunnel vision, mama bear, I can't handle nothing else.
So it came time, for the baby to be born, and I'm looking at my wife and her strength and her fortitude to know that she just heard that the person that she loves dearly, who helped raise her, who helped groom her to the woman that she is today, has just passed, and now have to go in this hospital, what is acting as if it was a bubble, and deliver our child. That truly showed me strength in the truest form of the word. Just to see that, see her do that, I am forever grateful.
And 2 days later after that, we got to take our beautiful baby home. We got a few days to be in the house, and it just being her. And, I just was so grateful. I was so grateful that if my grandma was going to pass, because she was going to, she wasn't going to live forever. You know, even though she was one of those people who feel like immortal, like, oh no, they're going to be here forever. Even though she was trying to get, like, go, we always just felt like she was just such that character that it was just like, I can't see my life without her not here. And it was so bittersweet because, yes, my grandmother did not get to physically see her, but at the same time, she left at a time where this beautiful new, you know, human being is here and she's in our family and she's great. And so it definitely helped me heal. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't been going through, if this was a different situation. I had just lost my grandma from COVID and I had nothing, no buffer. Like, this was a good, like, oh, okay, you know? So this, because now everything feels drastically different, you know? But there definitely was concerns with, like, how I would be handling it. While I was in the hospital, the nurses already knew I had just lost my grandmother. So there was a lot of things where they're like, okay, no, having to follow up with me for postpartum depression and definitely going through that, you know? I want to say that I don't think I'm as bad as I could have been, but I do have a very good support system. So I just, once again, praise God that my daughter came out. She's healthy. She's thriving, you know? And that we do have the family support, and that's all we can ask for. And
she never complained, not one time. Throughout the whole, even pushing the baby out, she did that. You know, our child had issues with her oxygen. She had to go to the NICU. And by the grace of God, 4 months later, she's okay. She's good. No issues, no problems. And she did that. She pushed out a beautiful baby girl. And again, for that, I'll always be grateful to Rachel. Love you, baby.
But being in that room alone, the isolation of it. Actually, I keep saying alone. I wasn't alone. It reminds me of the poem, and it's one of my favorites, Footprints in the Sand. When they show a beautiful set of footprints. You see normally 2 footprints, 2 sets, and then all of a sudden it's only one. And the guy, I remember the poem actually says the guy, that's God. Why did you leave me? I'm walking on the beach and there's only one set of footprints. Why did you leave me? And then God, in his infinite strength and glory, tells him, that's not when I left you. It's when I carried you. And I'm going to tell you, not just the 28 days in the hospital, or the 2 months at home recovering, or even now, I still feel that God is carrying me through all of this. So I'm not alone, and I wasn't alone in that room. God was carrying me. I had my hands around his neck, and he was breathing life into me, and he was comforting me and letting me know that it was going to be okay.
On August 6th, our beloved mom, grandma, and great-grandmother, Delzora Davis, went to be with the Lord. She's no longer in any daily pain. Mom is with her beloved husband, Adolf Davis. Mom contracted COVID-19 when our household did. She fought for 2 weeks in the hospital, and then on her own terms refused to be incubated. She was taken to a hospice home where she quietly passed away in her sleep. As her spirit rose to heaven, we believe she passed our little angel who is descending to earth to fill our hearts with joy. And on August 7th, Celine, our mom's great-granddaughter, was born to Rachel. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below. And most of all, share with your friends and loved ones so you don't have to empathize with our grief. Dear Grandma, Cookie, happy birthday.